The theme tunes are always on point.
Always. Oh, it's the best.
Super Turbo Atomic Ninja Rabbit. Super Turbo Atomic Ninja Rabbit.
So Stana was something that I came up with when I was really young. Stana is short for Super Turbo Atomic Ninja Rabbit. It came from being inspired by, you know, those Saturday morning cartoons at the time, like Thundercats, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Samurai Pizza Cats, and Usagi Yojimbo, which I didn't know at the time was its own thing. There was an episode of Ninja Turtles where Usagi Yojimbo appeared, and I was like, I just wanted to draw a character like that. I thought it was so cool. So it's kind of a bit of an amalgamation of my interests at the time and what kind of led me to being in this industry and being an animator.
Even the swearing, it's not even right. It's like, it doesn't even make any sense.
I remember Wes was really gagging to do like a more action style piece of animation. We'd done this film Drawing Inspiration, which is kind of like quite a sweet, almost saccharine story, which Wes co-directed with me, but wasn't involved in initial ideation. And I think after he was really gagging to do something more in his own taste.
And I brought in a bunch of comics I did when I was like 13, 14 years old. I think I was kind of erring towards like doing a particular comic. So it was called Sanyo the Dragon Master. So it was a bit of a Dragon Ball ripoff actually. So it was like super inspired by that. I saw Dragon Ball when I was like 13 or 14 years old in a French comic shop, and I was like hooked.
In 2013, me and Wes went to Japan, spent a lot of time in Tokyo. Japan's just like a special place. They just take the kind of stuff that we're interested in so seriously.
What intrigued me about Japan is how you would walk out on the street and you see like a one-piece billboard, you know what I mean, which was mind-blowing to me.
And that kind of shows that what we were doing was kind of serious and not like as niche as it was here.
So before then, I'd worked on The Illusionist. So that was up in Scotland, and that was like very kind of slow, like really high draftsmanship, quite realistic animation, whereas this stuff is like pose to pose and, you know, laser beams and like swords and martial arts and that kind of stuff. So it was like a completely different pace for me. We were very careful to try and use camera moves and animation techniques that didn't feel too modern.
There's not a lot of documentation about how this stuff was made. So there was a lot of trying to reverse engineer based on a clip from the Turtles, how they would have done a thing. Everyone's sort of nostalgic to these shows, but you forget how crude certain aspects were.
Yeah, we watched Akira, like a HD version, in the cinema. It was a Prince Charles cinema, and the amount of registration and the way it was moving is insane. It's like you just don't remember it in that way. But it's all those things that make it feel authentic. It's like what they were saying about Wall-E, where they got this kind of cameraman or this DOP to come on it and help them do all the imperfections that you get in camera. And he's like, in film, we're trying to get rid of this stuff and you're trying to actively put it back in when you don't have to. I remember Tim saying, oh, it'd be so cool if they had some sort of vehicle or toy they could play with. And I'm like, you know, say less.
The first thing I was sort of tasked to do was model the tank, the bunny tank, because Wes needed a model to rotate, because there was a sort of tricky shot in the sequence. So I kind of went through and modeled that and was doing that sort of in my spare time.
As confident as I was I could animate, I still wanted a reference. Flav got involved and he modeled the tank and it was incredible. He even made some modifications to the design, which I was like, yeah, I'm keeping that.
I remember Wes's reaction when we showed him the 3D print. So Luke's brother, who works in robotics and does these amazing robotic arms for amputees, he had one of the first 3D printers. And it was like a tiny little model, you know, super early 3D printing. And it was kind of shitty, but Wes was like, this is fucking sick, this is amazing.
So that's like the 3D print of the model.
He wanted to not just have a 3D render, he wanted to take each bit and each rotation and draw it and kind of get to a point where it all felt completely hand-drawn, but made sense as a 3D object.
I'm going to animate it like frame by frame. I'm not going to do it in 3D because that would betray the look of it. And I think all the guys were like, look, you need to, like, we can do it in 3D and stuff and make it look cel-shaded. I'm like, no, because the feel of it would be wrong.
I was like, why? Just use a 3D model. We have like 3D models of it, like just use it. And he was like, no, it won't look the same.
Tim thought I was crazy. He was like, Like, you're gonna animate a tank with a person driving and turning the wheel and all that kind of stuff. You thought I was nuts, but I'm like, I'm gonna do it. So people talk about the carrot, which Duncan just animated. He animated it really well, but then some people thought it was 3D because of how nicely it was moving, and it wasn't. He did it in 2D.
Online, so they were like, this bit is clearly 3D, and it wasn't.
The carrot worked musically because it's got that kind of whip sound where you hear the like sort of thing.
Because there was this kind of like conspiracy around that shot. I think everyone loves that scene, but
And I love the carrot because it's like, the reason I put the carrot in as well is because on He-Man, every time there was an interlude, would have the sword that would come towards the screen, like He-Man, you'd like.
I'd still cut it. I still think it's not too late to cut that shot.
The scene with Harden, who's named after, the Kentucky Fried Chicken founder. There was a scene actually, so Jonathan Job Conda, this guy, like probably one of the best animators I've ever met. Job did the animation again where he's kind of running. I was like, no, you've got to kind of have the arms up like this, because back then the characters would have this sort of run. And then I think I did like a quick sketch. He was like, yeah, this is not going to happen again. His face was like really straight sort of thing.
When it came to like doing the compositing, we wanted a solid reference for like, okay, how does it actually look? We were trying different things. We were like, fuck, we should do an actual cell to figure out the nuances of how the line works. How does it look if you actually photocopy a drawing onto a cell, and the real subtle stuff, like what's the texture of the paint when it's on the cell, when it's like a block color. That took a while, just figuring out how dark to, crunch the contrast on the photocopier to get it to stick, and then the black ink from the photocopier kept smudging. I think we played around with different acetates and stuff. So I think it took us about 4 days to get one that was like clean and passable.
You almost kind of digitally followed the process of when you photocopy onto a cell and paint behind it, like what is that? What happens to the line after it's photocopied? When I got the first comeback from Max of it was a Volton, or like firing the beam and stuff, and I was so excited, like seeing the beam glowing and it's working, because I'm doing something. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to look.
Definitely happy that we don't color animation like that anymore.
I wanted to do 2 versions. One that was called Super Turbo Atomic Ninja Rabbit, and one was called Super Turbo Atomic Mega Rabbit. And the reason for that is that when we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles here, it wasn't called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it was called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, because you wasn't allowed to say the word ninja.
What people were doing, they would get like their toilet chains and start making nunchuckers and end up in hospital.
And like ninja crime in UK was so right at that time.
And we actually did the Mega Rabbit on video, actually. We put it on video. It wasn't like a comping thing.
You got your HD version and you got your kind of like VHS Mega Rabbit version, and that was it for me.
Super Turbo Atomic Mega Rabbit. Super Turbo Atomic Mega Rabbit.
I think Max was like, oh, we should do the VHS version and keep that as the concept. And Tim went to go a step further by like deleting every single file.
This copy is the only copy that exists, and if anyone wants to make like duplicates of it, they have to get it from this master, and then eventually it would like kind of degrade and that. And Wes was just like, no.
With the music, like I'd worked with Rena May before.
The creative process for me was about tapping into that kind of that inner child, and drawing out when I used to watch those theme tunes years ago, like pouring that into, because one thing about theme tunes, it has to be catchy. There was something about when Tim told me the name of the song, it just came to me straight away. And even though Wesley was a bit kind of iffy about it, I already had the sketch down before he kind of greenlighted it.
He started talking about Inspector Gadget and, her inspirations as a child, and, how we used to watch a DJ Cat show and that. But when she said Inspector Gadget, I was thrown off, because I'm like, yeah, I don't want it to sound like that. I want it to sound more like this, like Galaxy Rangers.
I remember like a couple of weeks later, I think I was on the phone to Wes or something, and he was like, Tim's been singing that song around the office for about 2 weeks. And then he was like, yeah, we're proper going with that. And that was that.
I think what Rena's really good at is creating like what I guess like is referred to as like an earworm, where like you hear it and then the next day you find yourself humming it.
I got to live my dream at the Lions 10-year party. I got to perform Super Turbo and everyone went absolutely nuts. And it was nice to see people sing that back.
I'd say the music was just equally as important as the animation in creating the sense of the era it was from. We happened to have a studio space on the same floor as Boxer Toys, who are like one of the best sound companies in London.
We knew the music was already written by Rena May, but then I think it's always just like production sort of elements that we were looking to sort of develop further. I think the first one we did, we really got into the 80s thing and maybe kind of went too far. We went really synthy, I think.
Tim was adamant that like if we do an instrumental or an end version, it has to have like a guitar riff where like someone's really shredding on it and stuff, because all those kind of old shows like Silverhawks and stuff had like mad shredding and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, every intro has like wicked like guitar solos, like you just have to have it. It's just like non-negotiable basically if you want to be authentic.
Because obviously we were trying to sort of sell this as a real kind of cartoon from the 80s, 90s, an intro sequence, is finding the sounds that sounded legit to the time, quite sort of lasery, whooshy. So it was really a style to be found, like the sword shings and the kind of eye twinkles and things like that. They sort of like really kind of quite jarring sounds. So we would mix it in a way that sounded old and almost kind of badly done. Because we loved what we did on the animation, we really wanted to be involved in the VR experience as well.
The ball just kept rolling and I was like, Wes, can I sculpt the bunny guy? Stan? He was like, yeah, sure. And I sculpted Stan and then just kept doing all the other characters after that. Around that time, they had just released the first VR headsets, so we clubbed together all the 5 founders of No Ghost and put in 30 quid each and bought a new headset. And it was this really novel new invention really to us. And it felt like a way to get out and start a new company perhaps, or new collective, or do something interesting in a new medium and make our mark.
Him and like his group, they were like, some of them worked at ILM and all this kind of stuff, and they were like tinkering around with 3D and VR and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, oh, we've got the assets, maybe we could do like a VR thing. They were all living together. They're like kind of brothers. They've been like, working together for years and stuff, and went to their flat and had loads of computers and wires everywhere and all this kind of stuff. And
It's a big old house. There's like cables running through the hallways, going to different rooms. Again, there's like the Nebuchadnezzar and Matrix, all like sort of plugged in in different rooms. The faint whiff of weed in the house.
Smoked tons of weed, had crazy computer setups where we'd play LAN games all day after work. We were just sort of young and dumb basically, and it felt poor Chris coming round to our house back then probably didn't know what the fuck he was getting into.
We knew it was going to be a bit of a challenge because the Audio Engine, Fmod and Unreal Engine is a different prospect, because it wasn't just making sounds, it was sort of coding them and what's called implementing, attaching them to the different objects within the game.
It suddenly had sound, they mapped it like spatially, and it made, it really sort of like encompassed the whole experience. It was incredible.
I put it on, I tried it, and I was actually quite blown away. I was speechless. I think when I took off the headset, I didn't really have much to say. And I don't know if they thought that, oh my God, this guy hates it. And then I think I got home and I was like raving to my brother. I'm like, I just sat in the tank. He was like, what are you talking about? It's like, I sat in the tank with Stan and I was in the tank, the Ninja Rabbit tank.
And then when it came to the event, Tim was like, you need to call yourself something. You need to give yourself a name. And then that's what really spurred us to form and give ourselves a name, No Ghost, and start our company, really.
I should probably get shares in their company. So I started it. It's what you're saying is I started No Ghost.
It was our first ever thing we'd ever made, and we were trying to make something that had a little bit of a story, felt super immersive, and had a really high quality of animation. And I think that kind of set the bar of what we wanted to make.
maybe they didn't have all the assets to kind of create their own project. I had everything for them, all of the model sheets, and so I'm like, yeah, take it and play and make some stuff.
Can you see the tank in front of you?
Yeah, it just looks like a blob of red.
What happened?
Oh, that was scary.
The project was downloaded tens of thousands of times, and there's YouTube videos online that have hundreds of thousands of views of people playing it.
It wasn't planned, but it was just another thing that was added to the experience of this project that I think made it what it is.
So the first time I heard about Ninja Rabbit was when we were talking about different projects to make. Tim was like, oh, check this out. Wes did this. We were talking about doing this as a film. And I think that's when Tim was like, oh yeah. And we're gonna, maybe we could play it off as it was, a real thing. But it was really early on, and I don't think Wes was fully on board at that point.
Well, number one, that's more work for me, right? But number two, I'm like, I didn't believe that I had the animation prowess or direction skills to kind of get it to that level.
I remember me and Max in particular got excited about the hoax, and I think Wes was into it, but was like really focusing on the making of the short, and very kindly and said, look, if you guys want to do it, you lot lead that. Obviously he was involved in it and running ideas by him, but was very happy for us to kind of take charge on creating assets and kind of seeding it out in the world.
The thing with the partners, we're all skilled in different things, and I think like Tim and Max, like Tim has like good ideas about certain things. So even though I'm not like 100%, sometimes there's a part of me that's like, you know what, I trust you, so let's do it.
The first thing that we did was kind of like the easiest, like low-hanging fruit, was to create a model sheet. I think we even like directly lifted stuff from the Lino Thundercats thing, and it was because it had like Japanese text in it. And I was like, it was so small, I thought, let's just use it. No one's ever going to be able to read it and that. And I think actually when it came out, someone was able to read it or recognise it from Thundercats. So we did get busted there.
You created a YouTube account called Geeky Goodness.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah, that's right.
And you uploaded videos of intros for the 6 months.
Shows and
yeah.
stuff, yeah.
So that when it finally went onto his account, that it was like, oh, this guy does this anyway.
Yeah.
And you put a bit of information saying, hey, I found this video.
Yeah.
There was also, we'd called, we said it was WTL Productions.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's like my initials.
Your initials. Someone found that had existed as like a production.
Oh, was that the Turtle Bay thing?
And it was a Turtle
registered in Turtle Bay.
Registered in Turtle Bay.
Yeah.
And people were trying to make this connection. It's like, all right, Turtles, Bay, Michael Bay. So Michael Bay's making a new film.
So we bought an old Ninja Turtles lunchbox, with the flask, and took it's kind of sacrilege when I think about it now, but we took the stickers off it. Sam Taylor, who's one of the founder members of the line, he was able to do quite a funny approximation of bad lunchbox artwork. Hanai was working in Tokyo at the time, and so we sent her the pictures. She uploaded it and listed it on Japanese eBay.
It was like a perfect way of paying tribute. Was like, could we emulate what they did to the level that someone would believe that it actually exists?
For me, it was someone in the comments being like, I remember this. I needed one person to say that. If we didn't get that, I would have considered it a bit of a failure, I think.
I think it's still one of my favourite events we've done. We had like the 3D models of the tank and the characters, displayed them in plimps, but we like, what else can we do? And this VR experience where you get to sit in the tanks and stuff like that. So we had this crazy like multimedia experience that you could have there.
Going to Japan cemented the idea that you're allowed to do this sort of thing. It wasn't like an animators event, if that makes sense. It was almost treated like a gallery. And I thought, I want to have an event which is like a party, also a gallery as well. I always bang on about how Akira is one of my favorite like animes of all time, and you know, watching the film is one thing, but when you see those line tests and behind the scenes, it kind of gives you like a different appreciation.
The duvet cover and pillow, you know, as though it was like legit merch from that era, and then we had an old TV set up playing cartoons from that era, and it was like a nice element that was just extending the hoax in a way.
There were huge queues to try the VR experience out. We had, I think, 5 computers, each with a VR headset. I think like we'd begged, borrowed and stolen headsets from all over the place. Each computer was our own individual computer from home. I think maybe one of them was taken from Blue Zoo and another one was taken from ETC.
I don't think we got full numbers, but I think it was probably between 700 and 800 people turned up. There was a lot of drinking at the bar, and I think we were not sure about whether or not we ran the bar because we wasn't sure how many people would turn up, so we let the event space do it, and I think they sold out of everything, like, and yeah, we could have made some money back.
It's funny that this 1 minute short has like kind of touched so many people. You know, people I admired, you know, coming up and stuff, like the Sean Thomas and the Phil Barossa and, you know, Chris Copeland, like a lot of those guys kind of discovered me through that project. Like I remember like talking to Joaquin de Santos and he was like, oh my God, if you do this, I want to work on this. So having people say that about this kind of little project is like, it made me feel legit, you know, in my craft. So.
Yeah, since then we've been nominated for 2 Emmys and we've won 1. And this project was that first stepping stone. And without that, we wouldn't have gone down that journey and it would have never happened.
The reception was amazing, really. I didn't expect so many people to be interested in it. And then obviously the whole uptake on the internet, the amount of people that got involved in that was, it was amazing.
It's kind of crazy looking back at the legacy of it and how it had that initial impact straight away.
I don't know if it was like after we'd said we'd done it and put it out, but slowly furry fan art started appearing. It like escalated. It's got like more and more artists were doing it and like better, you know, you get much higher quality drawings.
There was some really gnarly stuff that people drew and like really talented artists. We didn't have the social media following that we had now. Like I'd say maybe even like 5% or 1% of it or something. We didn't want to give away too much about what we were going to show, but we wanted to hint at it through the kind of material we were releasing, and Bjorn did all these amazing like little videos of like 90s inspired kind of commercials and little kind of countdowns and like hints at VR experiences and stuff, and it was so cool. And we did about I think 3 or 4 of them in the lead up to the day, and then on the day we announced what it was. I think we just like to build the hype with our projects, and I think that was like the first time we really did that.
We take a really holistic approach to all stages of production, and when you sort of really approach all your stages of production in that way, including then your marketing and your release and that whole side of it, I think that's really shaped us in the studio and how we like to make work and celebrate the work that we make.
My favourite bit of Ninja Rabbit is the frog dude, Wyatt, when he's animating on that console, man. He's like got really floppy arms and it's super sick.
There was something kind of like Michelangelo, maybe it was the nunchucks, about Wyatt, where like I felt he would have been the Joker one. He was kind of like the scientist.
I remember the tank, I remember thinking Thundercat straight away, and I was like, yes.
My favourite part of the song in terms of the lyrics is Fernando, Wyatt and Hollander, Harlan and Steel. I would like Stunner to be a film. I've been saying this for years.
I mean, I always had this sort of ambition to make it a series. It's still there in the back of my mind.
Me and Wes have been talking about a game, like a side-scroller beat 'em up sort of thing.
I think it would be such a good game. I think like a sort of Streets of Rage style beat 'em up would be amazing. I'd play that all day long.
And it's definitely the kind of thing that I was into when I was growing up, you know, like watching the series and then trying to get the toys, the figures and learning more about it and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely want to do more with it.
We can't find the original cell. I don't know where that is. That is like, it drives me bananas. I mean, I hope whoever nicked it has got it on the wall and is a prized possession, but I'd hate to think that got lost and is in a bin somewhere or something, but maybe it end up in a car boot cell one day and someone will find it and post it and be like, does anyone know what this is? And then there's to be an old man be like, I did that when I was in my 30s.
I've got like a rough story in my head of it, but it doesn't really have a story or characters that you can emotionally connect to because you haven't been on the journey with them. But the fact that I think that the journey is actually like, you know, how we remember our childhoods, I think that's the thing that probably resonates with people, you know?